welcome. I'm Sarah from Handmade After Dark. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Australia, and welcome to my weekly online class to go. So this week we are playing with the terrific Toadstools bundle, and I will show you the cards first. So these are the 3 cards that we'll be making tonight, and so this is the stamp set, and then there is a coordinating punch. So the punch punches out the 2 largest toadstool tops and one of the stems, although particularly with the stem it does make it actually quite a bit thinner than the stamped one, so I tend to just fussy cut those ones unless I do want a quite thin stem, but that's fine. And if you don't have the punch, all the images are really easy to fussy cut, so that's always an option if you haven't got the punch. So for my weekly class, for those who aren't familiar, if you spend $75 or more excluding shipping and before any Stampin' Rewards redemption, after any Stampin' Rewards redemption, between now and Saturday night, so end of Saturday night, I will send you the kit or the kits to make 2 each of the 3 cards. So you get all the cardstock, designer series paper, any embossed pieces, I'll do the embossing, and then cardstock for the stamped and punched images. Any shapes, say this one uses a circle punch, I will punch that out for you, but you will need the stamp set and either the punch, or you can fussy cut for those, but everything else I will send to you. So that is this week's is until the end of Saturday night. Alright, let's get started. We will start with this one first, and I'll just pull all my pieces out. And I realized I got a little ahead of myself when I was preparing, and I ended up stamping and cutting and punching a bit more than I intended, but I will, depending on how we go for time, I will stamp and cut as much as possible. If I start using up a bit too much time, then I may, or if I mess things up, I may use some of my pre-stamped ones. So cherry cobbler card base, cherry cobbler designer series paper from the Regal's 6x6 paper pack, some basic white that's been embossed with the So Swirly embossing folder, and then cardstock to stamp and punch, and I've got a few spare bits and pieces here, and some basic white for the sentiment. Let's do the sentiment first, because that's the easy one, well, relatively, and I'm just going to check if sometimes the chat works and sometimes it doesn't, which can be a little bit frustrating, but we'll get sorted eventually. So let's see, where are we? Alrighty. Okay, so I'm using cherry cobbler ink for the sentiment. So as soon as I find my cherry cobbler ink pad, it was right in front of me. There it is, down the bottom. And just using the popping up to say hi sentiment. Need to make sure I remember to clean this before the next card, because I do need it in a different color for that one. So we'll just center as best we can. There we go. and I'm going to have quite a lot of images used across the 3 cards. I've used quite a lot of the images in the stamp set, so I've got them all out on blocks. Thankfully I have some extras that I brought up here recently. Alright, so what do we need now? We need I need a scrap piece of basic white, which I normally have all of that prepared, but well, I kind of do have it prepared, just a bit more prepared than I was actually intending, because I stamped everything. Alright, so cherry cobbler again for the toadstool top. And just make sure that's, yeah, that's looking good. And I've used crumb cake for the stem, and I've got lots of little scraps because I'm going to fussy cut that one because it ends up being a little bit too narrow for my liking for this card, so I'm going to fussy cut. Thankfully it's nice and easy to fussy cut, and I didn't do a very good job there, so let's do that again. That looks a bit better. Alrighty, so I will punch, and that was silly, I've done it round the wrong way, but that's alright, because I don't want to sort of end up losing a whole lot of cardstock from flipping it upside down. What I often do when I've got little pieces that I need to punch, so trying to put that in the punch and line it up is not the easiest. So what I do is just get a small strip or scrap of cardstock, and I just attach that to one end. Then you've got a little handle, and then you can slide it in to your punch, line it up. So these ones do, for all of the images, they cut a bit smaller than the stamped image, so you won't have a white border around it, which is quite good for these ones. But just so when you're trying to line it up, it won't be perfect in terms of, like, it'll, you know, you'll sort of be looking at it wondering if you've lined it up properly because you can't see the white border. And then we'll just quickly fussy cut this one. Alrighty. And then the other bit that we need to stamp is the old olive, and we're going to stamp off as well on this one. So the first one, so the first layer essentially is going to be full strength. And that's going to go, so make sure the bottom of your circle is covered, and you, of course, you can stamp and then punch afterwards if you find that easier. and I could have just stamped off straight away on that, but it's all right. And then we're just going to do another layer, and I just want to make sure it lines up. Well, it's not going to line right up with it, so obviously you can see that border there, but for this I'm quite okay with that. So I'm going to stamp this off. I might actually stamp that one off twice. I'm just going to spin it around so I've got a bit more space, and then I'm actually going to go on a bit of an angle because I want it to come up slightly, and that should be fine, I think. And of course you can always add as many or as few layers as you like. We won't talk about how many practice runs I did of that and was still never entirely happy with it, but yes, so let's start putting this together. So cherry cobbler card base, and then we will layer the embossed cardstock down. And while we're putting this together, and while I remember, I just want to let you all know that the October Happy Mail Card Club is open for registration. So it's my new monthly card club subscription, and the October one is open, and it will be using the Modern Christmas suite. So that is all up and running. Now, we won't stick this down just yet because we need to add the twine. I just want to roughly, did I get that the right? I made that too narrow. That wasn't very smart. I mean, I could do it partly across, but I kind of like it all the way. How did I? Well, it's very easy how I did that. I messed it up. Quite simple. Let me double check what the measurement is, or supposed to be. Or maybe this is too. I think actually, where is my, yep, I think it's not actually that cardstock was too narrow, but the paper was a touch too wide, and actually that makes sense now that I think of it. I would have cut the 6x6 piece in at 7.5, thinking I was cutting it in half, and it's a little bit extra. It's 15.2 for 6x6, and I would have forgotten to cut that end bit off. There we go. That looks better. All right. I will stick this one down now just because it helps to see where I want the twine. So I want that a little bit up from the bottom, and just slide across slightly. There we go. All right. Now for my favorite part, the twine. Where is it? So I'm using the Baker's Twine Centers pack and using the crumb cake coloured one. So we shall wrap it around a couple of times. Probably don't need quite that much. And we'll add a little bit of tear and tape to the back so it sticks. Just makes it a little easier to tie the bow. And I've probably made that first side a little too short, but we'll make it work. Once I work out where my bow is. Alright, time to cut this piece off so I can, so I've got a better idea of what I'm doing, and I think it's time for a glue dot. Yeah, we'll pop that down under there. Oh, I'm not having much luck with this tonight. My hands are not cooperating at all. There we go, finally. Now we'll just fix that up. Alrighty, that's looking okay-ish. It will do. Just shorten that one a bit. There we go. Alright, let's get this down. So we're just going to go for the middle of the embossed piece. And I may as well take the backings off if they will cooperate. Alrighty. Okay, that is done, and then where is my stamped piece from before? There we are. One about in the middle ish. Okay, and then we need dimensionals, and oops, this little one is where little strips and side pieces come in very handy. But before we do that, I will actually add a little bit of adhesive. Nope, wrong side, because this one's going at the front, not the back. So just gonna add a little bit, oops. Straighten that up a bit, that's about right. Let's move that one up ever so slightly, that looks better. And then I'll flip it over and I'm gonna grab one of my little side pieces. And yep. We just stick that down, and then we will add, let's add the insert before we add the gems. Got quite a lot of stuff on my desk tonight because I've got lots of stamps and not a lot of space. Okay. All right, now for the gems, I am using the, pull them out, the holographic resin dots. So these ones go quite well with this bundle, I think. Where's my, there it is. Put that lid back on before I stab myself. Alrighty, let's grab a few gems. And one more for the other side. There we go. Alrighty, that is the first card done. Alrighty, now let me bring this one back in. So this is the second one, and I will admit I'm a little bit nervous that I am going to mess up one part of this, but we will see how we go. Alright, so Melon Mumbo for the base, and then we have, and in the interest of time and factoring in that if I do mess up one part, I may need to cut more cardstock, so I will use my pre-stamped pieces. So we have an embossed piece, again this the So Swirly folder on Melon Mumbo again, and that is the same size as the card front, so it's a full size piece. And then some Granny Apple Green, basic white, and then for the inks I've used grey granite for the stems, but you could use crumb cake again. And then Melon Mumbo for the two largest Toadstools, pumpkin pie for the little ones, and granny apple green. So here's some I've prepared earlier. Let's put those over here. Now, the bit that I'm hoping I don't mess up, I did it fine in my practice ones, but is the sentiment. So I've used the popping up to say hi sentiment, but I masked the hi and then added in happy birthday from the Beautiful Butterflies set. And I kind of went with a cheats, lazy masking for this one. So let's see how we go. Hi Renee, hi Dimity, thank you for joining me. Hopefully I don't mess this up, but we shall see. I'm very good at doing it really well in my sample cards, and then when I come to do it live, I just balls it up. So, Melon Mumbo ink. Now, there are a couple of ways you can do this. You can either ink it up and then wipe off the ink. The problem sometimes with doing that, and it's why I went with, decided to, just in case I went with another version. So you can do that, and it's tricky because it's quite small. And it may well work perfectly fine the first time I do this. I'm just going to do it on scrap paper, but so you can just wipe that off. You just have to hope, and this is why when I did my sample card, I decided to add some extra layer of protection. I don't know how well you can see that, but you can still see the high. It's a lot paler, but you can still see it. And we want to avoid that. So you can still do that if you want, and then add a bit of extra coverage. So what I did is ink it up, and I'm going to do a test run just to make sure this is still going to work. And then you can either grab like a really thin strip of, can be cardstock, DSP, anything that's going to basically cover the high, and as long as it sort of, if you've inked it up, it will probably stay. But the other option I've used, and I don't know how well this is going to work now, but, and you've got to make sure you cover the whole thing. Actually, let's try it on the cardstock and see. I've always got the other side if I need it, and that's why I'm doing this bit first. So I've just put some removable tape over the high, and fingers crossed, and then hopefully I don't mess up the rest of the stamping. There we go. Do have a little bit of ink there, but that'll hopefully be covered. We'll cover that. So the high you can't see, and the tape is still on there, so that actually worked. Now I have to make sure I get everything else right. All right, so then I need happy birthday from the Beautiful Butterflies set. That's just going underneath. And then I need, where is my granny apple green? Where is it hiding? There it is. Now, oh, I should make sure I should clean all of these actually, because I haven't done that yet. Although That one I don't need to, but where is it? This one I do. So, granny apple green. Get that nice and juicy. And that's just going along the bottom. So make sure you do cover the very bottom of your cardstock. And if you don't, as I didn't, you can either cut it off, or I'm going to try this. I may well mess this up, but if I do, I'll just cut it off. Almost. No, I'm just gonna trim that bit off. Doesn't look too bad, but I will just give that a little trim. Just a slight little trim. Maybe a touch more, because I might have to give that a bit of a scissor trim. Let's just that should be, well, good enough. Although it's still bugging me, so I'm going to go just a little bit further. Did I ever mention that I was a little bit pedantic? Just a little. There we go. And then let's just check. I think this one will be fine, but we can always, yeah, that'll be fine. Yep, that's fine. I'm going with that's fine. All right. Oh, no, I still have one more bit of stamping to do. Forgot. All right, we need to do the little, where are they? Little toadstools. Where is Great Granite and pumpkin pie? All right, so this one is just going in the middle. And pumpkin pie for the tops. Where are you? Maybe get them around the right way, might help. Okay. And we'll just line them up, excuse my head. There we go. Now we can stick that bit down. Okay. Oh. And I'm not worried about that little ink smudge because I'm going to just, if it doesn't end up covered by one of the toadstools, I will just cover it with a gem. Alright, now let's stick the card together. So remember, this piece is the full card front size, so there's no border on around the edges of this one. And oh. So just slide that into place. Normally when I'm working, I've got my head right over my work, so it's a little tricky for me doing it this way during the lives, which is why I end up having to adjust things quite a lot, because I'm used to sticking my head right over it, but then that would mean you have to constantly stare at the top of my head. No one wants that. Alright, let's get this bit down. And then we need dimensionals for all my pieces. There they are. So we're going to have that one over there. This one's going to sit over here. So just work out your rough placement before you start to stick things down, just to make sure everything's going to line up the way you want it to and everything's the right size. So I'll stick these together before I put the dimensionals on, as I did with the first card. Apologies, I'm still getting used to, and I did adjust the camera a bit beforehand, but still getting used to having to work a lot further forward than I normally do so that it's actually in view. There's a limit to how far I can switch or move the camera, so I'm still working on that. We'll get there. Just need to keep remembering to work further forward, which then does make it a little trickier because I'm even further forward than I normally am when trying to align everything. Now, there it is. Just looking for my side pieces because I need some of those little pieces for the stem. And we'll go one more down there. one thing I should mention, one, before I forget, and two, because if I tell you that I'm going to do it, then I've got to actually do it. I am planning an extra live. It'll be a monthly live, doing a fun fold project each month. So it'll generally be one particular fun fold, and then depending on the fold and how much time I have, 2 or 3 different designs with that fold. So it'll just be a live. It's not a paid class or anything like that. It's just a live. I will be sending out the fold, so when I do it the following week in my newsletter the next week, I will send out a recipe card with the products used and the measurements for the card. So it won't have detailed instructions, but you can get those from the video, and that's probably much easier than written instructions for a lot of fun folds. But you'll get all the measurements, so you don't have to try and write them down during the live. You can just grab those measurements, and then if you need to rewatch the video. So that I am hoping to start very soon. I've got my first one ready, but I will post more details when that is coming. I'm hoping this week. I might be pushing it, but soon, very soon. And it will most likely at this stage be a Friday night, to be confirmed, but that is the current plan. Because I do like fun folds, and it can sometimes, it's depending on, like, the easy ones I can do in my weekly class, but the some of the more complicated ones, it's a bit difficult to do during this class just because of time. Now I don't have my insert. That's fine. I'll add that later. You all know how to do that and what that looks like. So there is card number 2. And let's move on to the final one. I'll bring that back in. And I just realized no, it wasn't that one. I did think I'd actually cut up my my piece, but I didn't. It's all right. And I just saw your comment, Dimity. Yes, that would have been a good solution. I was thinking blend, but thinking no, that's not going to work with the ink. But yes, blending brush for the bottom of for that bit, that would have been perfect to fix that issue. Alrighty, last one. So this one, basic white base, and then for this one we are using some Cajun Craze, and I've got some. Now with this one you will also get, if you're doing the class, for the inside, because it's a white base, I still like to add an insert on the white bases, so I usually do some cardstock and white. So you will get that with the online class. So there'll be 2 pieces of the Cajun Craze, the white, and then also a little strip of DSP to go along the bottom, but I'll move those bits out for the moment. Now, how are we going for time? Can't quite see it very well, but okay, yep. All right, so I will use my pre-stamped pieces just because of time. So I have some basic white embossed with the exposed brick 3D embossing folder, and then we have some of the Country Woods Designer Series paper, so that will sit along the bottom, and some cardstock for a couple of pieces of the sort of grass, moss, whatever you want to call it. And I just realized that one actually has been, that one doesn't have the nice trimmed piece. Do I have a spare? It's been cut off a bit. I'm pretty sure I do, but it's probably hiding right now. Oh, hang on. Yeah, I do, but it doesn't look great. All right. We can always sit that one behind. So we will. So we will sit, even though I kind of prefer, maybe I'll just, I will just trim this ever so slightly. There we go, that's better. Problem solved. All right, so Misty Moonlight for the little one, Cajun Craze for the big one, and where is my mini one? We have that one, and then I've used crumb cake on these, so I've done one of the large and two of the small. I've actually got 3 cut, but and then I've just, for the little one, I just cut that down, so that's easy enough. And then the sentiment I have stamped on basic white in Cajun Craze, and then I've got another piece of Cajun Craze for the banner, and a few spares because I am terrible at cutting those banners and mess them up a lot, which is probably why I've got so many spare pieces, just in case. All right, let's start putting this together. So first things first, and let's put these to the side. We will adhere this one, just make sure everything is the right measurement. It's all good. Add some adhesive. Alrighty, stick this one down and just slightly, and then that will go to the card front. Okay. All right, so this piece is going to sit right at the bottom. So make sure it's the right size before you start sticking. Okay. And make sure it goes all the way across. That's looking good. Alrighty. And then with these pieces we want, and actually that wasn't very smart. I have messed this one up. Well, not messed up. We can fix it. It will be fine. But I completely forgot I need to trim. I will need to trim the end off. But that's okay. And same on that end. But I reckon now I'm just gonna. I just want to check if I can. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a go. I think we can. Wouldn't be the first time I've done this. It's usually ribbon that I mess up. I stick all my layers down and then realize that I need to stick ribbon down. Alright, so that will go down there. Now I actually do need a touch more adhesive. I'm just going to stick that down there because, come on. Just don't want to squeeze out too much. And then this one is going to sit about there, so there'll just be a little bit overhanging. Alrighty, so make sure that lines up properly. Bring that down ever so slightly. Alright, now let's see if I can do this without completely messing it up. Thankfully, because it's on embossed cardstock, it gives it a little bit extra height, which gives you more room to get the scissors in underneath. And I reckon that's good enough. Having said that, I'm going to try and trim just a tiny bit more for that, but nope, I will mess that up if I go any further. That is fine. So one advantage of embossed pieces, you get a tiny bit more height, which does come in very handy for those situations where you mess up like I just did. And we all do it. Everyone does it. Alrighty, that one's going to sit over there, and then we need to trim this one down, so we're probably going to go about there. Trim a little bit off first, make sure it's don't want to trim too much off, although I'm sure I've got spare pieces lying around, but even still. These are all going to be popped up on dimensionals. And then this one. Alrighty, now let's put put the lid back on that. Let's get the dimensionals back out. Turn these pieces over. Alrighty, so I need some of my end strips, or the little bits. And this little one doesn't need all that much. And then we can just go with standard sizes for this one because it's a little bit wider. Alrighty, let's move those out of the way. Get this big one down first. So this one is going about, let me just, yeah, about there. That one will go over there. I'll do the middle one last because it's easier to then stick that one in the middle, but I do want just a little bit more here just because they can be, because they're quite thin, they can be a bit fragile, and I don't want them getting squished. There we go, and then that little one's going in the middle there. Get some of these backings off the desk. Stick that one down, and then, okay, now the sentiment. So this is not my strength at all, much like twine. But if you don't have, say, one of the banner punches to do this, the easiest way that I find is if you measure, work out where you want the center to be, draw a line, get the halfway, make sure you've got the point at the halfway mark. So draw a line up from the halfway mark and then across, and then you've got an idea of, so say for the white one, if that was full, so if that came to the edge, this probably isn't the greatest way to show you, but you would measure up to there, and if you go across as well, it gives you a bit of a guide, and then you know you want to go from the edge to that center point, and trim there. I still mess it up most of the time, and I don't know if this is going to work for the next layer, but we will see how we go. What I'm going to do, and I'm just holding this down at the moment, so this may not work because it may move more than I would like, but actually I am going to draw a line. So this one is, what do they say for this? I can't, where is my piece? It's a bit more than 1.5. Actually, I'm going to use, and if you're drawing guidelines, do it on the back of whichever piece, whether it's cardstock or designer series paper, do it on the back, because then no one's going to see it. So I probably want this one to come down a bit, so I'm going to make a mark there. So don't know how we can see the grey lead, but I'm aiming for that point, and let's see how this goes. Most of the time when I do these, a bit like when I try and round corners by hand, one side looked great, the other side does not. But that is looking decent. And let's just put this down. I'm probably going to find that it's, yeah, kind of what I thought. It is decent, but as you can see, it's the wrong angle for the piece that I was using. So actually, I'll flip it back over just so that I can see, because that's the difficulty when you're doing layered ones, that you've got to get it similar sort of angle. So let's see how this goes. And for some reason this is not one that I actually have a spare prepared piece aside, which is very silly, but alright, that will do. Now do I need to line that up at the edge? No, I can still have a tiny banner, tiny border. My alternative, if it was too short at the end, was to just line up flush on the left hand side and then have the border just at the end and the sides. But I don't need to do that this time. I can still have a very slight border. There we go. Alright, nearly there. Nearly there. We will just add some dimensionals. And stick this down and then add some gems. So it's going just a bit down from the top of the embossed piece, and for this one I'm using different gems. I am using the new Cajun Craze and Gold gems. So there we are. Alrighty. There is card number 3. Alright, let me bring all of these back in. And there we are. These are the 3 cards from this week's class. So the ordering is open until the end of Saturday night for this week's class. And I will switch my camera back. There we go. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the projects. Next week is it's Christmas projects. Let me double check. I think, actually, yes, next week will be the Modern Christmas, because that's what I'm using for club. So for next week's class, that is also going to be the Modern Christmas suite as well. All right, thank you so much for joining me. If you're watching this on YouTube, please remember to like and subscribe. It really helps, and I do appreciate it. Until next time, have a great week. Happy crafting. Bye.